Hey guys, welcome back to the next part of our series. Today we're going to continue with the bouncing ball animation, so let's get to it. This is where we left off. This is the result that we got from the last video. If you haven't seen the last video and you thought that the exercise started here, just go back, check the last part of the video, get to this point, and then we're going to continue from here. So, there's a couple of things I want to do. First, I want to move the ball. Right now, the ball is just bouncing up and down on the same axis, in this case, the y-axis. I want to move the ball forward. I want to make it bounce forward. And it might seem like the obvious option is to go to the first frame, hit S to keyframe it, and then go to the last frame and move it to the side, like this, right? And just hit S. However, if we do that, what's going to happen is the following. Bloop, 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 and then boop, all the way to the end of the track, right? So why is this happening? Well, the reason is right now we've been working with a set keyframe approach, and what the set keyframe approach does is it will set a keyframe on every single value, even if we haven't animated that value. So for instance, the translation on the z-axis, which is what we're moving here right now, sorry, the x-axis, has not been animated anywhere on this point, but it still has a keyframe. So if we were to take a look at the graph editor, you're gonna see that on the translate x, we have a constant value of 0 throughout the time. Remember, time and changing values. So 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, and then we rapidly change all the way to 20, right? So how can we fix this? Well, there's several ways. The easiest one, just erase all of this, guys. If we only need a keyframe on the first and the last frame, which is where does it start and where does it end, Maya will do the rest. Maya will do all the job for us, as we know, and it will create this, which starts to look something closer to what we're going for. Now, this also means that we need to modify the curve up here to make sure that the movement feels natural. So how do things move? Well, according to Newton's laws of dynamics, I think, was it Newton? I'm not sure if it was Newton. I'm pretty sure it was Newton. There's this law, right, in physics that says that every object will remain in motion until an external force acts on it, which in this case would be like air resistance, friction, and stuff like that. So I would expect the velocity or the speed of this guy to be faster at first. So I'm gonna bring this guy forward. So it's gonna have a lot of speed. It's gonna cover a lot of terrain first, and then it will slowly lose some of the energy until it gets out to the final position, right? So if we modify the curve in this way, now we're gonna have this. I still feel like it's stopping quite suddenly. So in order to minimize that, let's bring this down a little bit, and let's bring this down as well a little bit, so we have a smoother transition into a slow in and slow out. There we go. That looks a lot nicer. So now we have two things going for us. We have this very nice bounce, thanks to the changes that we did in the curves in the last video, and we have this very nice movement going forward. Now we're going to talk about one of the first principles of animation, which is called squash and stretch. Squash and stretch is a property that we normally see, well, not normally, we see pretty much any time. Like in every single motion, in every single thing, we're gonna see some squash and stretch. And squash and stretch allows us to exaggerate some of the poses for our characters and create this very nice contrast from our like basic shape to our contracting shape and our stretching face, right? So squash, of course, means pushing down, and stretch, of course, means like pulling out. And again, as I mentioned, this doesn't only happen with like bouncing balls and stuff. Any single time you're doing any sort of animation, a punch, a kick, a jump, you can use this principle, the squash and stretch principle, to really push the silhouette of your characters, the deformation of your characters, and create a very nice dynamic effect on your animation. So squash and stretch, super, super important, one of the 12 principles of animation. Now, how are we going to do it though? Well, I know that at the first frame, this one right here, our sphere is going to have its scale like pretty much uniform. However, when it hits the frame 7, I would expect this thing to become squashed. Now, the problem with squashing it like this is that we're losing volume on the sides. It's just becoming smaller without actually going wider on the sides. So I'm going to push this to 0.7, and then I'm going to push the X and the C to 1.3 and 1.3. Oh, 1.3. Now, you might see here that anytime I change a value, instead of getting this pink number, I'm getting a red number. Why is that? Well, I have this little thing down here called auto keyframe, and anytime the auto keyframe detects that there's a change in any value, it will assign the keyframe. I'm gonna turn it on. I recommend you do as well, because we're gonna be doing a lot of keys, and doing SSS, it's a little bit time consuming. So I'm just gonna keep it like this. So very important, if we scale in Y, we also need to scale in X and in Z to make sure that we get a little bit of volume to the sides. Now, one frame before I hit the ground, I'm not gonna be squashed. I'm gonna be stretched. If I were to play this right now, what's gonna happen is we're gonna be in this like basic shape, and I'm moving and I'm squashing beforehand, which is not what I want. So I'm only gonna squash when I hit the ground. One frame before that though, I'm gonna stretch. So let's go to like 1.4, and now we're gonna say 0.6 and 0.6, right? So the sphere is gonna stretch. So we're gonna have this. And then the gravity, well, what's happening here is gravity is affecting the bottom part of the sphere a little bit more intensely than the top part, and we get this stretch effect. So stretch, stretch, and then boom, squash. And this change right here, this contrast between these two frames, is what's gonna make our animation look very, very nice. Now, one thing I can do here is I can also rotate this a little bit so that the direction of the sphere is actually going in the direction of the arc. Every single motion, that's another principle of animation. We're going to be exploring it a little bit in more depth later on. It's the arcs. Everything moves in this sort of like arc shape. So I'm going to move this thing like this. It squashes pretty much like straight. And then one frame after this, it's going to squash again. But instead of going like 1.4, I'm going to go 1.3. And then I'm going to go 0.7 and 0.7. Now, these are just like semi-random numbers, as these are the ones that I've used for a long time to teach this exercise. Eventually, you're going to have to figure out which of the numbers are working for you and which ones aren't, right? So in this case, we got a stretch, squash, and then a stretch again, pointing towards the next high point here, in which we're gonna recover our whole volume. There's always a point, like a balance point, or like an equilibrium point, where we're just not gonna fight gravity. We're not pushing gravity out, if that's how we can say it, and gravity is not pushing on us. It's like a complete balance before we start falling again. And at that point, the scale is gonna be completely uniform again. So now if we go to our frame 17, I want to repeat this squash and this stretch, this 1.3, 1.7, 1.3, but I don't want to have it, what's the word? I don't want to be, it shouldn't be as intense as what we have here. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to say 0.8 instead, 1.2, and 1.2. See how it was important to have the pivot point down here? Because otherwise, if we were to scale like any other sphere, like here, let's say that the sphere is here. When we squash this thing, we would need to then move this thing down as well. And that makes animation a little bit more complicated. So that's why it was very important for us to have our pivot point down there. Now, one frame before this, of course, we're going to be stretching. So I'm going to do 1.2. I'm going to do 0.8 and 0.8. And I'm going to rotate this slightly like this. And then here, I'm going to go 1.15. I'm going to say 0.85 and 0.85. As you can see, I'm reducing the amount of squash and stretch because as I'm going forward, I'm losing a little bit of energy, right? So we have this, look at this, very nice, perfect. Now we recover our normal volume, and then on the 0.25, we're going to squash again. And I know this is the penultimate jump. There's going to be one final jump here. So I'm going to go 0.9. It's going to be 1.1 and 1.1. One frame before this, let's go 1.1, and let's do 0.9 and 0.9. We're also gonna rotate this slightly to the side, squash, and then here, again, let's do 0.9, 1.1, or sorry, this is a stretch, so it's 1.1, and then 0.9 here, 0.9 here, and then we just rotate it a little bit. We recover our normal element, and then here, I am gonna give it a final squash. Another 0.9, I think it's good. 1.1 and 1.1. And then a couple of frames later, I'm just going to recover my normal volume. So it's just like a final squash before finishing the animation. And if we take a look at this, we're going to get the following. Boing, boing, boing. Very cool, right? Now, I think that last, like, unsquashed, when we go from squash to, like, normal volume, it's a little bit slow. You can see it here on the timing. Hopefully, the compression on the video is good for you to appreciate it. You can see how I can't see it, and that's what I mean. Like, I don't want to be able to see it. It should be slightly faster. So I'm just gonna, I want to move this keyframe here to another part of the timeline, and to do so, I'm gonna press Shift, click on the keyframe, and then just move it like a couple of frames back. That way, instead of taking 4 frames to recover its volume, it's only gonna take 2 frames, and we're gonna get this. Awesome, right? So this is it. Like, this is the first exercise in our animation like course. So yeah, I think we're doing a good job here. Sorry, I lost my word over there, but no worry. So here's what I'm gonna talk about now. Once we have an animation, one of the things that we want to do is we want to present it nicely. And there's, of course, 2 ways to do it. We can do something called a render, which if you've taken the Intro to Maya course, you know how to do. We can just assign like a normal Arnold material, HDR, a light setup, and do a very nice like scene setup here. And we can also do something called a play blast. So a play blast is taking just this element and pretty much compressing a small video to show our client, to show our lead, and to just show the animation before we go into the final render, because renders sometimes can take a long time. So there's one quick tip here that I'm gonna give to you guys. When we do a play blast, we do it by going into the time slider here, hitting the play blast right here, and you're gonna select the QT, which is QuickTime element, the QuickTime compression method. We're gonna change this to H264, which is like an MP4, and we're gonna go do 100 quality. Now, in order to select the QuickTime one, you're gonna have to download the QuickTime plugin. And QuickTime is this, or was this, a player. I'm gonna say QuickTime Maya Play Blast. QuickTime was this player that Apple released like several years ago, but there was an issue where it wasn't possible to, or rather, they found an issue a couple of years ago that has a security breach on the thing. And the problem with that security breach is that it's pretty much impossible to fix. So Apple just discontinued QuickTime, and you can no longer download QuickTime. However, there is a way to download the QuickTime codec, which is the H264. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna look for the QuickTime element. Let me check real quick here. Give me just 1 second. Yes, so this is the site that I was looking for. It's sevcastillo.com_blog. You can also look at like this. If you just Google how to play Blast H264 in Maya without QuickTime installed, you're gonna find this guy. And this guy takes you to the Apple's website where you can actually download the latest version of QuickTime, which is this QuickTime 7. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna install the QuickTime thing, but you're not gonna install the software. You're gonna go here into the options, and you're gonna unselect this QuickTime player. In QuickTime features, you're only gonna install the QuickTime Essentials, which is the codec that we need. And with this, there's no security breach, there's no problem, and you're gonna be able to have the QuickTime movie encoder inside of Maya, which is excellent for us. So if you want, you can do this. The other option, of course, is here in the Play Blast, which again, I repeat, it's right click here on the time slider, Play Blast on the option box. You can also export as an AVI, AVI. However, this one is going to be uncompressed. Even if you try a compression, it's going to be like super dense. So I've had like 5-second animations take like a full gigabyte of space. I strongly advise against this. But if you want to, there's also Handbrake, which is a free software that you can use to compress your files and share them around. QuickTime option, way better. So I'm going to select this QuickTime option. I'm going to select H264. And before I do any sort of render, I want to add a little bit of like life to this thing, right? So I'm going to go into poly modeling. I'm going to create a plane here. Let me change the color of the background. I think it's a little bit too... Let's go with this one. Then I'm going to select the sphere. I'm going to go and assign a new material. Let's do a blend material. And let's just add like a traditional like red color material right here. I'm gonna go into my rendering tab, and I'm gonna add a directional light, move it up, rotate, and I'm gonna press number 7, which is gonna turn the light mode. And when light mode is on, I can also turn this little button here, which is shadows. You're gonna see the shadow there. It's not the best shadow. You can see it's a little bit pixelated, but it works fine. I can also turn on this multi-sample anti-aliasing, motion blur, and even ambient occlusion on the contact points. So now when I play this, I might not be able to see this at full speed. If your computer slows down, that's completely normal, but you're gonna see like a better rendition of the whole thing. I'm gonna move this light down so that we don't see it. I'm gonna turn the floor off by pressing this button right here. I'm gonna add one little sun right here, which is the ambient light. Reduce this to like a 0.2, so it's very soft. And move this guy down as well. And now if I hit play, we got this very, very nice animation. Okay, so now what I can do is I can go again, right click, Play Blast, option box. I'm gonna capture a movie on H.264, QuickTime. I want full quality, I want full scale, and I'm gonna use my window. So whatever is right here, that's what I'm gonna capture. I'm gonna save this file, and by default, it's gonna be saved on your movie file folder on your project, and I'm just gonna hit Play Blast. So what's going to happen now is Maya is going to go frame by frame. It's going to render this and it's going to compress it into a movie, which, as you can see, looks very, very nice. I'm using VLC Media Player to play it out. You can use any player that you want. And this is usually what we send to clients or to the leads of the project to show them how we're doing, how our animation is going, and they will then give us feedback based on this. Sometimes they don't like seeing like all the motion blur and stuff. They will ask to turn those off. So just turn them off right here. But yeah, this is the way we're going to be able to present our animations. So that's it for this video, guys. I'm going to stop the video right here. We're going to do 2 more exercises in this scene, 2 more little events. So hang on tight, and I'll see you back on the next one. Bye-bye.